Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 4 pod of the FPL Wire, powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zophar. My co host, Late Riser, and I are joined by our friend Big Man Bakar. But I'll come to you first today, Alat. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a while since I'm feeling good because of footballing reasons. Because yesterday before the game, I tweeted that all I want is the boys to give us a game, and give us a game they did. So very very happy and looking forward to next game week as a United fan for a change. So yeah, how are you guys doing? How was your game week, Bakar?
4 points. I thought you were going to ask Zoff because it's more or less the same thing.
I'm wondering why both of you all showed up today. One of you all should have just showed up. It's pretty much the same thing. When I want to ask what happened last week, because you guys on the pod were going in clear different directions, and then on Friday I'm like, okay, these two have beaten their teams. They have the same team again. What happened?
Bakar,
Please hear me out. Give me a couple of minutes.
Go ahead.
Please hear me out. So I think I reserve the right to answer a lot of these accusations that are being thrown at me by Prunil, who's basically being the ringleader of the people who've been accusing me. Anyways, I mean, I personally take strong exception to these accusations. I think they're based on no factual evidence at all. I think a lot of people tend to conveniently forget that I was the one who was on Salah captain last week, and I was very bullish about it on the pod. On the other hand, Zoff was on Jesus. I don't know what changed overnight that made him reverse his decision. No one is talking about that, and it's almost as if it didn't happen. But I thought I'd point that out in the first place. Then, secondly, I'd also like to highlight that Zoff was on Robertson and Bailey to Neko and Diaz throughout the pod, and in fact throughout the whole week. So what actually happened, which made him go to Kukurea and use three transfers instead? I'll tell you what happened. I was the one who suggested those three transfers on the very pod itself, and you have video proof of it. You can go back and check it because I was the one who suggested those three moves in the first place. Zoff wasn't even aware of those moves would be possible, right? And so for him or for anyone else to say that I've been copying someone is frankly ludicrous and laughable because it's based on no concrete evidence. I also, if I was copying his team, how do I have 2 more points than them? I mean, these are all questions that need to be answered, sir. I mean, I want to
hear all of them.
Zoff, I mean, people who live in glass houses should not throw stones, right?
I think your name is Pervez Musharraf on my phone for a very good reason. You liar. Ultimately, I mean, the entire evidence has been placed before the Discord. I have nothing further to say. And it's all on video last time. You were very clear on keeping Robertson the entire part.
Yes, I was. I was until the last 10 minutes where I suggested
you suggested that Cucurella transfer 100%. That I agree with.
As far as Discord is concerned, please hear me out on that as well because on Discord you mentioned that you were the one who's.
I haven't mentioned. I've shared our entire group chat, and it wasn't about. We're not talking about Perisic. Let's forget the Perisic.
More than half the world was concerned about Perisic, who owned him. They were concerned that whether he'd start after Sessegnon's performance in game week 1 and after Conte's comments in game week 2, whether or not he'd start. So I mean, if you have a crystal ball to yourself which gives you the foresight to know that things will happen in the future, then congratulations to you. But I mean, I was worried as a Perisic owner, and I believe I got lucky with it, which is great. But I mean, it could have easily gone the other way as well.
Yeah.
Firstly, Bakar, I just want to say that I am not alleging you are copying Zophar. I'm just saying that you guys are on the same team. That's pretty much it.
I know. I'm just having a laugh.
No, yeah, I'm just saying he's blatantly copying. I'm putting it out there. I have shared the evidence. I have nothing further to say. Let's move on with our sponsor plugs. DreamSetGo is India's first sports travel and experiences platform, offering a range of premium, end-to-end, authentic experiences across football, cricket, tennis, F1, rugby and golf, among others. From matchday hospitality to VIP stadium tours, from private meet and greets with athletes and legends to exclusive access to their training sessions, DreamSetGo curates the most fulfilling sports travel packages for fans like you. All data you see on the FPL Wire is taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. The new improved members area is now up and running, and the new comparison tool lets you compare key stats for up to 3 players. Player projections are also live, and as always, you can access the custom stats table we create or make one for yourself. Sign up for membership today using our affiliate link in the description below. Right, guys. Let's kick off with the game week 4 discussion. And how should we start this, LR? Do you want to have less discussion on the macro first, what we've learned from this weekend and macro going forward, or should we jump into the fixtures and let that discussion evolve?
I think let's do it. Let's touch upon a little bit of macro first, because I think there are some short nerves out there, because the big at the back, as we know it, didn't perform this week. But I think it's just our job and duty and responsibility to mention right now that this is the anomaly, not the norm. Everybody needs to calm down. Everybody needs to not worry too much. Everybody needs to not question their FPL decisions too much. We'll break it down game by game, but that's where we are. And a big meta in terms of where we are right now, Zoff, and it feels funny to say, is that we're in game week 3. Most of us are about 5 game weeks away from a wild card. Most of the template is in my head still strong. Somebody said that they would have shots every time I'd say in my head. I need to make sure I'm saying this.
Somebody's getting drunk.
But somebody's getting drunk tonight. But the template's still strong. And I feel like for the next 4 or 5 game weeks, where you're going to spend your transfers because of how strong your team is essentially go haul chasing with 1 or 2 or 3 players where they have really good looking fixtures. And because you're ripping the band-aid off game week 8 anyway with the wildcard coming. And that's because of the strength of the current template. Where are you at with that, Zoff, right now?
I think it's a blessing that some of the non-template picks performed, because people need to see that there's life outside the template as well. We keep crying that the people have the same team, but then when we see other players perform, we get worried, we don't own these players. I think it's a very refreshing sign and something we need to take note of for when the fixture congestion kicks in. For those who don't know, after game week 4, game week 5 is a midweek, and then all the way leading up to the World Cup, there's a midweek fixture every week. And in fact, for the clubs that are not in Europe, they are playing in the Carabao Cup today and tomorrow. That is Tuesday and Wednesday. So for certain clubs, the midweek action has already started. Now, we got a quote from Guardiola where he mentioned that Haaland isn't going to be playing every week. Other managers have probably had the same thing in mind, but not have voiced it. So there's an opportunity coming going forward. And like, you have to think about, then do you stick with a Haaland? Haaland, again, he's going to come off the bench. Haaland, if he's benched one game, next game he could come off and get 2 goals off the bench. So I think there's an interesting period coming now. And I think we should take note of all the players that are performing from these non-top 6 sides and how we should integrate them going further. Bakar, your thoughts?
Zoff, I mean, I think this week we should be fine, and with regards to rotation, that will kick in. But definitely, I think the template will shake up after game week 4 because of the midweek fixtures that are going to take place. And there's Perisic, there's Haaland, there's the Chelsea wing backs, and all these top teams which we have in our squads. They have basically 3 games in the space of 6 or 7 days, so there will be plenty of rotation. I think the template will definitely change in the times to come. But as far as the wildcard is concerned, I think I'm still firmly in the camp that you should play it after game week 8, because there's a much better opportunity to do it unless your squad is completely wrecked and you don't have any other choice.
Yes.
I also think one thing in terms of, especially when I'm talking to managers like you and Zoff, Bakar, is that I think now for the next 4 or 5 weeks, your risk averseness sort of needs to come down, because you're anyway going to wildcard in game week 8. You're 4 or 5 weeks away from a wildcard. So, when we're talking about somebody like a Rodrigo, for example, now who's on the cover for game week 4 now, for somebody who's bothered about expected minutes and not expecting a pick like that to last for 8 game weeks. Now, there are a few factors that are at play, and I just want to cite this example because yes, there is competition for Rodrigo when Bamford comes in and when Sinistera comes in, and that's what people are worried about as things stand. But Leeds have great fixtures right until game week 7 or 8. Jesse Marsh has been obsessed with Rodrigo for the last 6 months, ever since he's come to Leeds United. And for Rodrigo to not play game week 4, 5, and 6, very, very weird things need to happen. And you basically want him for 3 or 4 game weeks anyway. So I feel like, people are worried about X minutes. They need to not worry so much because you're going to wildcard in game week 8 anyway. So in terms of how risk averse you are as a manager, you're almost playing it like the end of the season. So that needle needs to shift a little.
I also wanted to put a note on the UCL drop that's supposed to take place later this week. That also will affect how much teams rotate.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll get more clarity as we go. And I think now we're good to break it down game by games off.
Yes. Speaking of rotation, let's start with the big question, Perisic. As I know all three of us own him, but as someone who doesn't, what would be your advice? Bakar, I'll come to you first.
This is a very tricky question to answer this week. I for one, am in favor of bringing him in if anyone doesn't have him, because I just think that he's established himself as a clear first choice. Conte has basically come out and said that he's the Ivan Perisic I know from Inter. He very clearly said that he's ahead of Sessegnon in the pecking order, and there were a few concerns about his injury as well. But Paul, who's basically the Spurs in the know, he's actually come out and said that he fully expects him to be available this weekend. So I don't think the injury concerns are much to worry about as of now. I think if you don't own him, the upside is as big, because as Pranil said, you have to look at some of the picks in the short term. And Perisic is a short term pick because you would expect him to play at least 2 of the next 3 game weeks. But there could be a 15 point in there somewhere, right? And there's also the point that you have to factor in that it's very likely that he gets rotated in midweek, and when if he gets rotated in midweek, Fulham have Brighton at home, so Pereira could be a possible replacement for him. I mean, all in all, I just think that it's worth going for him if you don't own him.
I think it's also worthwhile telling our listeners and viewers that to do exactly what we're doing is essentially when you know where to look in the right places on Twitter, we're getting a pretty good indication in terms of whether Perisic is going to start the game or not. And I think I'm okay when I speak for the three of us that based on what he says in his predictions, we're talking about Paul on Twitter, we're going to either start or bench Perisic. Is that right or wrong, boys?
Correct, but there's a problem with that theory.
Yes.
Now, Spurs play on Sunday. You're not unlikely to get any news from Paul this weekend. Say Spurs play on Wednesday. Again, very unlikely you're going to get news there either. On the midweek.
No, but he does his predicted.
Correct.
So
you won't get that
one
news.
day
So
before.
we cannot really rely on that. But I'm interested to see who Spurs draw on the UCL. Right now, let's look at the next 3 fixtures. Now you have Forest, West Ham, Fulham. Now it depends who they're playing in the Champions League, where you can sort of predict that rotation. If you ask me, he needs to play West Ham. That's a difficult fixture for Spurs. Usually, I think he needs to play Forest. Again, they're on a bit of a high at home. I think he probably gets benched on Fulham. Then you look at who they have in the Champions League. Accordingly, then you guess whether he plays in the Champions League or not. But in short, I think he's worth the upside. It's not you're going out for a 7-8 million risk. It's only a 5.5. So I think he's definitely worth the upside.
Yeah, and people said, that Spurs didn't get controlled, etc. as well. When he's starting, there's no doubt in my head he's a walking double-digit haul. Because there are so many outlets to points that he has. He's on some set pieces. Spurs didn't have control in that game against Wolves. Wolves were really good. That said, even when he's deep on the touchline and crossing, he's finding the center of the box. So the quality of the player is such, and the stats might not show how attacking he was. There were 4 or 5 occasions where he was offside. So basically, when the ball is with the midfielders or the centre backs for Spurs, they're looking to find that run in, and Perisic is the one making that run in. So just all in all, get him, manage minutes, and if you get a 1-pointer, take it on the chin. That's where I am.
I agree with you completely.
Yes, but the big question here, boys, is that a lot of people are in the position where they have a City defender, either Diaz, Walker, or even there are people who are considering moving on from Robertson to Perisic. So would you guys recommend those moves? Because that's basically what people are asking this week. It's very easy to sit here and say that Perisic is worth buying, but is it worth selling someone like Robertson, or is it worth selling a City defender is what I'd ask.
A City defender, yes. I think especially the likes of Walker, you can because of the limited
I
upside.
agree.
The Diaz also we saw.
Yeah.
Anybody can get rotated at any time from City. Even Cancelo, I want to talk about when we get to Man City a little bit. It doesn't look the same as last year. The average numbers, etc., are down. I do think he's slightly expendable, but not that keen on it. But if you have one of the centre backs, if you have Walker, I think definitely. But with Robertson, it's a little bit trickier because I think what we have seen so far, Bournemouth are the worst team in the league right now. They might not be 10 games from now, but this looks like the banker clean sheet for Liverpool if I've ever seen one. Newcastle and Everton could be dodgy, but this is the banker clean sheet where Spurs might find it a little bit difficult at Forest. So not Robertson, but the other guys I don't mind.
I agree.
The thing with Robertson is I don't think it's worth selling him for Bournemouth. Bournemouth and Leicester both have the fewest big chances created this season, which is why I'm very keen on giving Robertson and the Chelsea defenders another go. I think they're good picks this week. But I've actually been surprised to see Tsimikas come on in both of the games recently, because that's been a bit of a red flag. That wasn't happening at all last season. So, I mean, I won't be surprised to even see Robertson miss out in one of the games with congestion. But I don't think this is the week to sell him.
Completely agree. And I think the rotation probably will happen with Robert, but I think why he's making the subs is because he has no other subs. They're literally all other guys on the bench are kids except Tsimikas. So he's just trying to affect the game in whatever way he can. So I wouldn't read too much into substitution, but I do agree that Robertson is as likely to get rotated as anybody else in that Liverpool team over the next few weeks.
Agreed. I do want to talk about the Spurs-Wolves game a little bit more because I saw the full game. Heung-min Son at the moment is not an option. He just looks fully off it at the moment. And, we predicted the last couple of weeks that Richarlison seems like he's more of a threat to Son than he is to Kulusevski. Kulusevski, make no mistake, was Spurs' best player in that game against Wolves. So just wanted to add that I think Kulusevski is a good option if you're looking for somebody in the 8 million bracket going forward. But Heung-min Son isn't an option. At the moment, it's NFO. He can easily brace. But I think there are better picks to make. I wanted to touch upon Harry Kane because of Pep's quotes, right? Most of us are on Haaland at the moment. And Pep has mentioned that Haaland is going to play once a week. That said, if I'm getting rid of Haaland, I don't think I'm going to go Kane. I haven't seen much from Kane to be convinced that I want to go there as an asset. What are your thoughts there, Zoff?
It's interesting because Kane, the thing is security of minutes, which is going to be big for this period that's coming up. And for that alone, I like it because you have captaincy options at home to Fulham. Kane's a good fixture that week.
Yeah. Also, just one thing to basically monitor in terms of press conferences and Conte. Like, Emerson Royal has no business playing for Spurs at the moment. I was watching that game, and every time the ball went to the right-hand side, Kulusevski was giving it to Royal. I was like, just give it back to Kulusevski and make him do the cross, because every time Royal was crossing, it basically ended their attack. So I feel like Conte is seeing what we see too. And if Doherty is fit enough, I don't think it's far from him. We're far from him being an FPL option as well. So that's just one to monitor. I do want to talk about Wolves though, because they looked very impressive. They've upgraded in defense. I think Collins and Kilman at the back is a solid partnership. I think their midfield, Neves, Nunes, and Moutinho, and up front, Guedes is one who caught my eye. I think he had 5 shots, 3 chances created. I was surprised to see that he's a 6 million midfielder. He's on my watch list because Wolves have a nice period of 3 fixtures where they're playing, I think, Newcastle at home, Bournemouth away, and Southampton. I think it's a good fixture. And people are talking about, Wolves not having that many goals. But what I saw in terms of, and you're talking about a solid, organized Conte defense that they were playing against here. The 3 defenses that they're playing, with the exception of Newcastle, aren't the same. So I see goals in Guedes, and I think if somebody wants to take a punt, I'm all for Guedes at the moment.
Let's talk about Neto. There's a lot of news surrounding him. On scene has tweeted that Arsenal want him. And as soon as I saw the lineup, I started worrying a little bit about his minutes going forward, because once Jimenez slots in, you have Podence also who can play on that side. You have Guedes. Neto slightly worries me now. If I was a Neto owner, I would be getting itchy feet. Bakar, what do you think?
Yeah, because I was actually surprised to see him play as the right wing back. It's not a role he's usually been accustomed to. I think it's a difficult fixture for him this week anyway. And if I had him, I'd probably look to sell him for Rodrigo even this week, despite the fact that I think that Rodrigo has a bit of a tricky fixture. Coming to LR's Kane point, there are plenty of people who actually have 2 free transfers and don't have anything better to do, and they're considering doing Haaland to Kane just to jump on the Forest fixture and to jump ahead of the curve, because they're predicting a rest for Haaland based on Guardiola's comments in Gameweek 5. I personally won't do it because I think that Haaland does have the potential to go I mean, he can get a couple of involvements against Crystal Palace because his underlying numbers are very, very impressive. They're actually much better than Kane's. It's not a move I would want to be making this week, even if I had two free transfers in
I
my
agree.
team.
It's just a downgrade. If people are doing that, you're downgrading it. I'm not for it at all. Even though the fixtures thing, I just haven't seen anything from Kane to be a good asset yet.
The question is, do we do it next week? That's when Haaland plays Forest at home, and the midweek fixture. That's probably when the question should be asked.
Zoff, I think we can't actually answer that question before we hear from Pep in game week before game week 5, because there's a good chance he gives something away.
I don't think he's
Haaland.
going to give much away, but I think that's when the question will be.
He will be questioned. I'm sure he will be questioned.
Probably, but I think that's when probably this question is much more pertinent. You don't give that. You definitely don't make the move this weekend, but for midweek, I do see the appeal in that move.
Even if you do, how much of a risk are you taking when you're clicking the buttons and clicking on Haaland out before you read NFO at home? Like that's also a factor, right?
I think that's a very interesting dilemma that's going to be happening next week.
Yeah.
Especially given his ownership. It's not as if like he's not highly owned as well. So it's definitely going to be a very risky move.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more on Monday. On Monday, I think we're going to do a short. I think with the Tuesday deadline, we'll try to do an early pod, at least a shorter one on Monday for you guys. Sorry, LR, go ahead.
Bakar, I wanted to ask you, where are you on Guedes? Because I'm considering he's like actively on my shortlist at the moment. Were you convinced with what you saw there?
I like what I saw from him, but I'm still not convinced about Wolves' ability to score on a frequent basis because they just lack that finisher. So I personally will wait and watch with him. I don't think I'm gonna consider bringing him into my team at this point in time. I just think Rodrigo's far too superior.
Yeah.
Move on to the next fixture. Anything to add here, boys?
Nope.
Palace, Villa, Zaha. Again, very, very impressive. I didn't think that was a penalty at all for the second goal which Palace scored. But what are their fixtures, LR, going forward? I think they have City away this week. Then after that, it's a mixed bag in terms of fixtures.
City away, Brentford home, Newcastle away, United home. I'm very happy because we said Zaha is one of the best 8 million replacements when people were looking in that bracket last week. So I'm very happy we got it around. We got a few messages also saying that, good job. I think even if you're having a tough fixture, I think there are certain teams in my head now when you're talking about Palace, when you're talking about Leeds United, when you're talking about Brighton, and you're talking about Fulham. All 4 teams are at the moment sitting in the top 6 for XG so far, and they have front foot, forward-thinking managers. And you don't mind such teams playing against even difficult opposition. They're good for a goal anytime. So if despite the fixture, you want to go for somebody like a Zaha, you know that some of the big teams are capable of taking advantage. Zaha is the only outlet that they have on the counter. So there is a decent chance of a goal anyway. If you're convinced and with the penalty factor as well, I think it's a good pick.
Great pick. Absolutely. Yeah. I think Doucouré has added a lot to their midfield. I was worried how they replace Gallagher, but they've done that quite well. Their recruitment is spot on in terms of the players they buy. But in terms of Eze, I'm still not convinced on Eze as an FPL option as such.
When I'm watching the games, right, Zoff, what's happening is Eze is the reason Zaha is such a good asset. What used to happen last season was Gallagher was playing in that Palace team, and there wasn't a ball carrier in that Palace team. Gallagher's role was to occupy the central spaces, and he was the goal scorer in that team. Eze is playing on Zaha's side as well. And because he's the dribbler, he's carrying the ball, he's actually occupying a couple of defenders who are drawn towards him, which leaves certain more space for Zaha, and Zaha thrives in that space, which is why it's just become a better asset. So because of Eze, I think Zaha's appeal has increased as an FPL asset. And if you have him, it's somebody like you can stick in your team for 10 game weeks and not worry about. Like I was looking at some stats also. In his last 16 games, you want to take a guess how many goals he has?
10?
11 goals. That's insane. Like he's getting 1 goal every 120 minutes at the moment. Just good pick. There's no debating that at the moment.
Good pick. Let's touch upon Villa a little bit. We saw Bailey start. And I think Stevie had told he benched Bailey the previous week primarily due to the formation that the opposition play. I think he could possibly start against West Ham, and that's a big fixture for both clubs.
Yeah, that's a dilemma I have at the moment because I haven't sold Bailey as yet. And I thought he did well. in that game against Palace as well. He was out of the few bright sparks, if any, that Villa had. Bailey was one of them. So I'm fairly confident he starts. And at the moment, he's on the pitch playing for me in game week 4 because I don't have a clear place to go. And I feel like there might be more explosive advantages to take after game week 4 when we have the midweek fixtures in front of us. That said, if you have a clear way to go in terms of selling Bailey, Villa is a problem at the moment. I mean, Gerrard can't figure what he's doing at the moment. If you have the defenders get rid, the fixtures are after this week are ridiculously bad. They have Arsenal, City, Leicester after West Ham. So yeah, let's stay away from Villa. What do you think, Bakar?
I mean, you can never be sure with Gerrard because I don't think even he knows what lineup he's going to play this week. But I mean, if I was to guess, I think Bailey will start this week because he was very impressive. One of their brighter players, like you say. So if you have him, I'd definitely play him ahead of the likes of Andreas, Neko this week.
Next game, so.
Next game, LR, I think you watched this, right? As a Neko owner, tell us about Forest.
It was what we expected. It's very disheartening to lose a clean sheet in the 80th minute. Brilliant ball from Pickford and great control. But I mean, my opinion hasn't changed. These defenses are there to target and play Neko Williams in easy games if you have to. Outside of that, there isn't much of an FPL takeaway. Both defenses are there to target. They are two of the weakest defenses in the league at the moment, and that's the FPL takeaway from this game.
It's an interesting one with Neko, right? Again, we go back to the Stephen Cocker principle. Lots of attacking threat, but the clean sheet potential is looking slim, and slots in defense are so precious right now. You have even the 4.5 guys like Saliba, Duncan keeping. So I see a lot of people like our friend AK I was speaking to. He says, I'm never going to get rid of Neko. He's too good value at 4.0. But is the opportunity cost of that defender spot worth it, Bakar?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is because it's simply, you look at Forest's expected goals conceded. They're conceding too many big chances and too many XGC. You look at the Everton game alone. Everton had like 1.6 XG, if I'm not mistaken, which is, I mean, from Everton, you'd expect it to be below 1. But if you're conceding that against a side which doesn't have a recognized striker, then that's a big red flag. I don't think Neko is playable in most of the fixtures. I mean, I know he has a few plum fixtures coming up from Game Week 6 and his underlying attacking numbers are very impressive. But I mean, he's only worth considering in probably Game Week 6 and Game Week 8 when Forest have Bournemouth and Fulham at home. I'm not even sure they're going to keep a clean sheet against Fulham, actually. So just in Game Week 6 where they face Bournemouth, that's the one where you can possibly see a big haul for him. So, I mean, I personally don't buy the argument that he's too good value to pass up at 4 million, despite every underlying statistic that he has.
What if Neko versus a 5 million defender is the difference between owning a Neto and a Rodrigo? That's pretty much the dilemma. And I get that if somebody wants to hold on to a Neko because with midweek rotation coming up where you're worried about your big teams rotating a few players, the attackers are from the 6 million-ish clubs that we're talking about at the moment, right? So I get that.
I don't think that Neto is the best 5.5 million midfielder in his bracket. There's Gross now. So, I mean, it's the fair comparison is to compare Gross plus a 5 million defender with Rodrigo and Neko, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But I'd still go for Rodrigo. I think Gross and Rodrigo are miles apart as FPL options.
Completely
Rodrigo being the superior.
Absolutely, Rodrigo
is better, but when you look at the combination, it's not as clear cut. I think it's very 50-50. It honestly depends on how the structure of your team is.
I literally think it comes down to you sitting with your team, and you don't need to do anything but sit with a fixture ticker and just put darts you know what? I see MCI NFO game week 5. I want an attacker there. I see Leeds having great fixtures attacking wise game week 5 to 8. I want Rodrigo there. And what do you do to enable that? And if that means keeping Neko, so be it. I don't think it's a big deal because the attackers that you want that are decent, whether it's Zaha or Rodrigo, etc., they are the mid-price ones. So if you don't want to move on Neko and waste that transfer, I'm for it. I understand it. And I think Neko is perfectly playable game week 6. There was something to say from an FPL point of view where I thought that Neko was a lot more advanced in the home games compared to the away game that I saw. So I think they're going to have a lot more ball in the final third against somebody like a Bournemouth. Bournemouth could potentially be a 10-12 pointer as well. So you decide where you're going to game manage your team. That's about it.
That's a good point
No,
about the home thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's I did highlight that game week 6 fixture for him, but the thing is, it honestly depends on how good and explosive the fifth defender you own is, because at this point in time, if Chelsea look better, if Kukurea is playing as a wing back regularly, then it's a different ball game, right? If Chelsea don't look as solid, then even I myself with my own team I might decide to downgrade Kukurea to Neko and upgrade one of my midfielders to Rodrigo, because I do agree Rodrigo after this week is a fantastic shout to have.
And it's not just Rodrigo as well. Like right now, one of the biggest loopholes that I see in my team is Greenwood. My 4.5 Archer rather, my 4.5 million striker. If I could set up a wildcard right now, my structure would have 3 strikers, no doubt, and I would want to go for one of Ivan Toney or Welbeck, because I think there's value in that 6.5 million striker spot at the moment. So it's about where you want to shift your funds. That's about it. And I almost, because of the midweek congestion, like that mid-price attacker in midfield or up front more than a defender at the moment.
Makes sense. Anything to touch upon Everton?
No.
I think they're completely FPL irrelevant. Since you're talking now about strikers, let's talk about Mitrovic. He could have had a massive score in this game. Rhea made 2 brilliant saves, and Fulham at home, they look a completely different beast. I think teams are going to struggle to keep clean sheets at Craven Cottage. And I think Mitrovic, I know the fixture, I think he plays Chelsea, Brighton, Arsenal, I think in the next few weeks. The fixtures obviously are a wait and watch, but in game week 8, he's going to be the first name on my team sheet around game week 8, game week 9.
Yeah, especially after you're so close to him game week 1's off. He's the one that you missed out on.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there are 2 picks. Like, I missed out on Rodrigo. I was close to him. You missed out on Mitro. You were really, really close to him. Yeah. I think just unfortunately the fixtures aren't there.
It was between him and Perisic for me. So now I don't feel as bad after last week.
Fair enough. And I think the same applies for Andreas, isn't it? Like, our perception needs to change. He's a 6 million midfielder. Like, at the moment, I'm debating starting Bailey or Andreas. And from what we saw of Andreas, he is very, very convincing. And because the quality on set pieces and he's on a ton of them, he's pretty good at bonus points also. He got 1 assist and managed to get a couple of bonus points as well. So
yeah, he created 4 chances. Which is why.
Exactly. So decent option. Andreas is playable in any game rather, because Marco Silva's front foot, right? So again, with these teams like Leeds or Fulham, who are so attack-minded in the way they approach a game, I wouldn't mind starting them, irrespective if, just as a band-aid move, you need to start one of them. I don't think it's a big problem. That's all.
Agree. Let's talk about Brentford a little bit. I thought Tony's goal was fantastic, and he's really looks very confident now, very at home in the top flight. I think he'd be at home in any of the top 6 clubs if you slot him in there. And I think great pick for the next few runner fixtures.
Yeah, I think if you're getting him now. Because the earlier you get a pick like that, the better the chances of you catching a haul are. Yeah. And there are fixtures out there for Brentford to catch a haul. Just want to reiterate that for our listeners. The fixtures read Everton home, Palace away, Leeds home. If you're talking about home games, they're probably 2 of the best home games for an attacker back-to-back.
And X minutes, right? We're entering fixture congestion. Mitrovic and Tony, both these guys for X minutes, they're absolute gods.
And penalties.
And penalties as well. Lots to like over there. Anything more to add? Move on to the next game?
No. Nothing else to say. You guys have covered it.
Let's talk Leicester, Southampton. And as Baker says, the classic 1-1 game. Leicester actually created very little in terms of XG this game. Maddison scored that free kick from outside, and they're struggling at both ends of the pitch. Not just in defense, but in attack as well. Let's talk first about the defense for Leicester. A lot of guys with Ward and Iverson. Should we move off or still? I think you have to move off, right, Bakar?
No, Leicester have been, all over the place, both attacking-wise and defensively. You look at their previous 3 games, their XG reads 0.5 in game week 1, 0.6 in game week 2, and 0.3 against Southampton. Now, 0.3, if you're accumulating 0.3 XG against Southampton, that's as low as it can get. I haven't seen a team accumulate as low as an XG against Southampton in ages, to be very honest with you.
But Bakar,
serious problems.
If you're talking about finding form, Leicester are the best fixture to find form in the next game. What are your thoughts of?
I think they will probably score, and they probably will score as well. But at the bridge,
I just been holding on to that
I
for a
know,
long time.
I
I just
know.
wanted to get. I just wanted to get that out
We
once.
still have
But
more
yeah,
points. We still have more
yeah,
points.
let's. No. I just wanted to get that
I
out
know.
once because I've
I
gotten
know.
it so many
I
times.
know. I welcome it.
I know.
Please feel free to
Yeah.
fire more. I enjoy it.
No.
So
That's about it.
let's talk about Maddison a little bit. Is he probably the best 8 million mid now?
No.
No, not for me. Not for me. I still think Diaz is superior for sure. And Zoff, I mean, I was saying that no team has actually created fewer big chances. No team has actually conceded more big chances than Leicester this season, which just sums how terrible they've been. And coming back to your question regarding Ward and Iverson, if I had the two of them, I would generate some funds if I didn't have an extra point 0.5, and I would sell Iverson for Sanchez, even if it's for a hit, because you look at their upcoming fixtures for Leicester: Chelsea, United, Brighton, Villa, and Spurs in the next 5. While for Brighton, they have Leeds, Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace. And no team has actually conceded fewer big chances than Brighton this season as well. So I just think it's the perfect storm, and it's the perfect time to jump off if you've made the mistake of starting with the two Leicester goalkeepers. There can't be a better time to jump off.
I agree, because it's just not that Leicester are shit in defense. You know, they've kept 6 clean sheets in the last 40 games. That's how bad they've been. It's not like Ward is like a save machine like Melia either. He's terrible. He's underperforming his data being a goalkeeper as well. So you're not getting save points. You're not getting clean sheets. The sooner you replace him, the better your odds are of the hit paying off. I'm with you, Bakar. Just get it. But question I want to pose to you guys: where do you go right now if you were taking
Sanchez? I think
Bakar?
Sanchez is the clear 4.5.
Yes, Sanchez. Yeah, Sanchez for me as well.
Yeah, Sanchez or Rhea? I still think I've seen enough from Brentford from a defensive point of view. But Sanchez or Rhea are the two places I go. The only slight skepticism I have for Sanchez is, what do you think of these fixtures from a clean sheet point of view? Of Leeds at home, Fulham away, Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, Palace at home. That's the only thing.
Not great. And what we saw against Fulham, they were quite open. They could have shipped 5-6 goals. Rhea heroics kept in the game, and look at how Brighton are completely nullifying teams.
These are Brighton's fixtures.
Oh, okay. I had not expected that. But even then, for Brighton,
let me take that one. Let me take that one.
Yeah.
You're talking about Leeds being a hard fixture. Brighton have actually had a number over Leeds under Potter. Leeds have scored just once in their previous 4 games against Brighton under Potter, and their XG accumulated in each one of those games isn't that impressive as well.
It's a new team. It's a new Leeds team, Bakar. It's a completely new Leeds team. Zoff will vouch for that right now.
Sure, but Brighton in general are a tough side at home. I don't see Leeds scoring more than 1 in this fixture. So this is another point I'd like to raise from this observation of mine, is that I don't think you have to actually go out of the way to buy Rodrigo this week. I think a lot of people are taking unnecessary hits to buy him this week. I think people can afford to wait and buy him next week, because it's from next week onwards where I really think his fixtures turn, and I think after that he's going to be a phenomenal pick. But yeah, I have no problems with people who are buying Sanchez this week.
I just think there are better places to go for because of those fixtures with the keeper. I'd roll the dice somewhere else. Because Leeds, Fulham, they're attacking teams. I mean, Ramsdale is still sitting at 5. Spend a 0.5 more and guarantee those 6 points. Like, what's the problem? Genuinely, what's the problem?
I guess if we go to 5 million, then probably Ramsdale. But at 4.5, I don't think there's anyone better.
I don't have any cons for Brighton. I think they're going to finish maybe in the top 8 this season. But I just think Leeds, Fulham, I don't know how many clean sheets they're going to keep there. That's all. They're front foot teams. That's all. That's my only skepticism there. That's all.
Fair shot.
Yeah.
Southampton, anything to touch upon? I think both their guys, Mara, is worth watching. We've got a couple of players we are monitoring, hoping Che Adams can become an option. Great goals. Both his goals I really enjoyed. Yeah. But not much to talk about from an FPL perspective. Move on to Bournemouth, Arsenal.
Just saying there are very few teams to target from an attacking point of view. Again, Leicester and Southampton are few of those that fall into this category. Like if you see your attacker playing Leicester or Southampton, attack that fixture if you're haul chasing the next 3-4 weeks before your wildcard.
Arsenal, Bournemouth, the first half was one of the most one-sided I've seen. They didn't have a touch in the Arsenal penalty area. So Bournemouth clearly looked, as we discussed earlier, the worst team in the league, but how good are Arsenal? There's point potential at both ends of the pitch. I think now you lose faith in Saka, or do you still keep it?
There's an interesting stat that Neil mentioned in his scout notes that caught my attention, is that Fulham have conceded thrice the amount of chances from Saka's side compared to Martinelli's chance. So where I am is that said, Martinelli is pretty much the forward. So if you know where you're going to use the 2 million that you're saving this week, then do it. If not, wait for a week just because of that stat.
Yeah, the next two fixtures are good for Arsenal.
I won't personally wait. If I had Saka and did not have Martinelli, I think Arsenal are building their attacks down their left with Zinchenko and Martinelli. And Martinelli is clearly the more superior option. He's had like 4 times the number of big chance involvements as Saka. And I don't think it's any surprise that Arsenal have scored 9 goals and Saka has just 1 goal involvement. It's actually exactly according to how the underlying number suggests it should be. So if you don't own Martinelli, I think he should be worth buying over Saka this week.
You make a very convincing argument, Bakar. I track back and I think you're right. Whatever the defensive stats say, Martinelli's attacking stats are there. So yeah, get him.
I think
picks are good picks, and that's
good picks are good picks. I think Jesus was very unlucky not to get a bigger score in this fixture.
Yeah. I think there's not much to talk about Arsenal because everyone's maxed out on Arsenal already. And if you're not already, get there. That's all that we have to say.
There's value in defense there, especially.
Yeah. Yep. Leeds Chelsea. Zoff, I actually want to ask you because I think it's not mocking that's done. But I feel like Tuchel's at fault for this result. What are your thoughts here? Because there's a few decisions I didn't agree from a management point of view. What happened?
So we'll talk about the team selection a bit later, but up till Mendy conceding that calamity 0.99 XG chance, neither team had really done much. It was 0.1 both sides, and I think that completely shot our confidence. And what's happened, I don't know whether it's leadership or new personnel or organization, we are very poor at defending set pieces. We conceded to Spurs through a header. We had Rodrigo open again. So that's been an obvious weakness clearly teams are targeting. Koulibaly struggled. That early yellow card really, you knew that he just wasn't going to last the game. The entire game he looked out of his depth, and Gallagher is just not a 6. What might happen now, I think we might be forced to play a back 4, primarily with Kante and Kovacic out, because I really don't see who else we can play in that midfield position now alongside Jorginho.
Mount.
No, he's not a CM. I'm not as confident.
I understand, but when it comes to ball retention, holding the ball, playing the passes, and compared to what we saw Gallagher do for Crystal Palace last season, I almost feel like Mount is a better fit in the 6 and Gallagher's a better fit in the front 3. And the inverse, I think that team would just become much better. And I understand that you want to play Reece James against Heung-min Son against Spurs, but I think Tuchel gave way too much respect to Leeds United by not playing his best creative player as a wing-back. It's just miles apart. I didn't get the whole RLC experiment as well. I think he needs to stick to the basics, get what's worked for his team in the past year and a half, play his best wing-backs in the wing-back position. That will happen anyway now because Koulibaly is injured. So I'm expecting, Cucurella to come back as an LCB if he sticks 2-3 at the back. Chilwell to play wing-back on one side, Reece James to play wing-back on the other. And that's it. Just stick to that. That's all.
I'm not sure he can do that this weekend because Aspie just doesn't have the legs to keep up with Vardy.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So what do you think he does?
I think like what you said, I think he'll stick probably with the back 5 because Leicester are also playing that. If he does play a 2, I don't know what he's going to do in midfield. Because I think
why can't he play Aspie as a wing back? Because he did that a lot last season as well, and Aspie did fine as a wing back.
That's my point. He might play James at centre back and Aspie as wing back. That's what he might do. Probably, I think Cucurella will play left centre back with Chilwell as a wing back role. But then midweek, what's probably going to happen is you have Cucurella who's going to shift over to that side. So I still like Cucurella as a pick. He came close to scoring twice, and we see all the player ratings in fan forums, reporters. They had Cucurella as the highest rated player. The problem is, of course, we know his end product isn't that great.
Yeah, he was in a few Alonso-esque positions in the center of the box as well. Just didn't finish, that's all. But I think from an FPL point of view, it's encouraging that if he's playing wing back, he's getting in the center of the box.
Yeah, and it was weird that he was taken off set pieces completely. I don't think I remember him taking a single corner or free kick. Mount was taking them on all sides. So it seems to be roulette every game. We saw Reece James take them against Everton. Somebody take them game week 2, game week 3. So I don't know what's happening with that. But there is general disharmony. So I wouldn't rush into investing into Chelsea assets. If you have any of our attackers, I keep saying give them faith for one more week. It's Leicester. It's arguably the worst defense in the league. You give him Mount probably just one more week.
I almost think it's easier to hold on to Sterling than to Mount. He could have had 2 goals, Sterling, in that game. And the first 20, 25 minutes, you guys actually created 2 decent chances, I thought. 2 or 3 good chances. Just, you're right, that Mendy error just put everyone off in terms of
It's
what's
not even
happening.
while
And there's
making
little
a
bit of
pass. I don't know what he's doing with those rubber. I think at least if you're making a pass, you make a poor pass. I can accept that. But doing these Cruyff turns, it completely blows my mind.
How far is Kovacic from fitness off?
I don't think he's going to be back for a while. I think post-international break.
Yeah, because that's if somebody isn't on a Chelsea double defense, now is not the time to double
No,
up, is what you
definitely not.
know, right? If you're thinking about selling Reece, I would want to say that he's one of the best defenders. 6 mil is insane value. Just hold on. I wouldn't sell Reece. I think that's too much.
Let's
But
talk.
I understand maybe going off Mount if you have to. That's all.
Yeah, I'd sell Mount as well. I don't agree with Zophar. I'd sell Mount if I had him.
It's
I
only
think they're
because of
better
how bad.
options.
I do understand, but like I guess if you have a Liverpool spot free, move to Diaz. But which of the other 8 million mids are performing? You'd probably go to Zaha, right? If you sell Mount, and this week Zaha has City.
You're right.
I'd even go for Rodrigo.
Yeah, but Bakar,
You
you
just
just
said
said like
Brighton.
15 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying you don't have to go out of the way to do that move, right?
That's
I
this
just don't
week,
see anything from
because
Mount.
this
The
week,
underlying.
this week Rodrigo
This
has
week-
that fixture, Zaha has that fixture. If you're not maxed out on Liverpool, you can get to Diaz. That I'm for. But where do you go otherwise for the 8 million mid?
Kulusevski.
I won't go with Kulusevski. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Kulu is a don't buy, don't sell personally.
Why? I don't get it. Why?
Because I still am not sure whether he's worth 8 million. I just think
What has he
Rodrigo
done to make you not be sure? He's been Chelsea, Spurs' outlet. He's up the field. He's looking electric. He's
I know,
creating
but
shots.
But with midweek his minutes, I'm not exactly sure whether he's going to start all those fixtures. Because I don't see Conte dropping Son, despite the fact that Son has been very poor in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I don't see Conte dropping his best player. Honestly, Kulu's been Spurs' best player, and there's nothing that anyone can say otherwise. Pretty much.
I won't sell Kulusevski if I had him, but I won't look to buy him personally.
And coming back to the earlier point as well, you're right, Zoff. I think it's a good week to hold, and because in terms of except for Diaz or Kulu, there's no other place to go. So that's the only thing. Or if you have a double move and you're switching to Ivan Toney, I don't mind that, but it's a
That's
decent
still
hold if you don't have a clear.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
not. It's, I can understand the frustration, obviously, especially the way Chelsea were playing, but Leicester defensively are just really bad.
Yeah.
Let's give some credit to Leeds. I thought they were fantastic. The kind of work rate and the pressing. I thought Tuchel was being very unfair when he said that the fault was with us and not the opposition. I thought Leeds were brilliant. The team now clearly has bought into Marsh's ideology, and I love what he does with what his philosophy. He calls it vertical football. And I noticed this immediately. There were absolutely no sideways passes. As soon as they got the ball, every pass was played forward. I really enjoyed watching them in terms of a team. Obviously, as a Chelsea fan, it was difficult, but you have to appreciate what he's done there.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And anybody that's skeptical of Rodrigo or Aronson as picks, I'd say your skepticism is unfounded. Again, because you're wildcarding likely in game week 8. From being the person who scored 4 goals in the first 3 games to being dropped immediately, a lot has to happen. And by the time that happens, you're approaching wildcard territory anyway. So that's where the threshold for risk needs to go a little higher. That's all.
Just one more name
They're
I want.
top 6, top 8 attack in general. They're front foot. So I like that.
One name you didn't mention is Jack Harrison. I think he's top for chances created across all players in the league. He's really shining under Marsh. So I think in terms of priority of players over there, it would be Rodrigo, Harrison, then Aronson for me.
I'd still go Aronson. He was in the center of the box a lot of time. But again, you want to know what happens when Bamford comes in. That's it. Aronson and Harrison both are indispensable at the moment, the way they're playing.
Yeah. The advantage Harrison has is the set pieces.
Yeah, I think the only one who makes way is James.
Harrison, I think, is top for XA among all players in the league so far. It's creating, it's creating a ridiculous amount of chances.
I'm happy he's abandoned the Daniel James up top experiment.
Yeah.
Anything more to add, boys? Move on to West Ham Brighton.
Yep, let's move on to West Ham Brighton.
Hammers are in a bit of a crisis, and their performances haven't been great. All their players a lot of players are off key. Antonio isn't looking great. Bowen isn't looking great. So, but how much do we read into this fixture? Because Brighton away are a good team. How much do we read into West Ham has assets? Are they FPL relevant right now?
No.
I agree with you. There's not much to talk about. In terms of Brighton,
there's not much to talk about, I think. But Brighton, I mean, they're looking really good. I was actually surprised to see McAllister step up for the penalty because the expectation was that Cross would be on penalties. I don't think this makes him a bad pick, but it's just that he becomes slightly less appealing in terms of what I thought he would be. He's still getting into promising positions, playing just behind Welbeck, and Brighton are playing some lovely football. You look at their second goal and Cross with the layoff for Trossard. It was an incredible goal. And with their fixtures, I do see Gross. He will keep ticking along. The defense is great, as we've already spoken about.
I just want to speak on the defense, and Baker was mentioning that to us this morning, is because they have two midfielders playing as wingbacks, instead of defenders, the likelihood of Sanchez, Veltman, Dung getting bonus points goes a little higher as well. So that's just a point that I wanted to add on here. We already discussed, in terms of the fixtures being slightly dicey. That said, it's not a bad place to go. I'm interested in the Brighton attack because the fixtures are there for attackers. If we're talking about Leeds home, Fulham away, Leicester home, Bournemouth away, that's good for attackers. And I really wanted to punt on Danny Welbeck because this is now the 8th time in a row he started. And did he play? If he played 19 the last game, that's 8 times he's played 90 minutes as well. So in terms of fitness, I think we are past it when we're worried about fitness of Danny Welbeck. That said, the XG is getting hogged by Gross and Trossard in that team. So I don't know if he's just doing a lot of this.
Gross has taken only 3 shots in the box.
His numbers for XG, because I was looking at team XG numbers.
He's got 2 or 3 big chances, but I'll just quickly pop over his stats over here also. So in terms of, strangely, XG non-penalty, he's 1.44, but these have come from only 3 shots in the box, all 3 of which have been big chances. So it's a bit of an anomaly in that sense.
Yeah. Just because I think Webbs is a decent punt. Because I'm not worried about his X minutes anymore, but I just wonder if he's doing the hard work so that the others are in the position to score. That's my only worry.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
But decent punt still.
Decent punt. Just as certain numbers I wanted to highlight over Gross. In terms of chances created, he's quite good. But again, ceiling is a bit low in terms of him not taking many shots. But at 5.6, 5.7, that's perfectly palatable with the number of set pieces. Brighton are very good at them. So yeah, a lot of potential in that aspect.
I think he's a very good asset at 5.7 million. He'll keep ticking along with the fixture.
People are going either Rodrigo or Gross, and if you're picking between the two, I'd still go Rodrigo.
No contest. I think Rodrigo's miles ahead. But if you're looking at Aronson or Gross, there's a discussion to be had there.
Yeah. And I still think Guedes is a name in that hat. I'm that convinced about him. I liked him. I really liked him.
Fair shot.
Just wanted to mention there are 1,300 people watching us at the moment. Thank you, guys.
And no audio issues today, guys.
No audio issues today. We've all been working on our internet. We make sure that scenes in the background a little bit better. There's only 170 likes, guys. So, it just takes for you to click a couple of buttons to help us out. So make sure you're clicking on the like and subscribe button because it helps us get out there. And we really would love you guys supporting us. And in terms of supporting us as well, we've started a Discord as well. We are 200 plus now members in terms of the people on Discord. I spent most of Saturday chatting on Discord and I absolutely enjoyed it. I think it's a great place to be. We got some nerds in there as well. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to support us, you can just become a member on YouTube or go to our Patreon, patreon.com/the FPL Wire and support us. And we'd love to hang out with you guys out there.
Brilliant. Move on to the next fixture, Newcastle, Man City. I thought you were very hard.
Game of the weekend.
Absolutely fantastic. And I thought I'm surprised you said that given Monday's game. But yeah, I thought you were a bit hard done by with a Haaland captaincy over here. You could have had a much bigger score.
Yeah. I mean, coming out 2 points behind to the field, going, getting encouraged to make that tough decision to go Haaland because I thought it would be an expansive game. I looked into the results last year as well, and Ho doesn't sit back. He doesn't want to sit back in such games. He likes to go 2 for 2, and Haaland I should have at least gotten 5-6 points on the field, but that's how FPL is. It works out. The thing with this, something like this, is you have to keep constantly backing yourself if you're making these moves. That's about it. But credit to Newcastle. There are a couple of things where my perception altered when it comes to Newcastle. First of all, let's just say that this is an anomaly Man City game. You're not going to see something like this week on week. I think a few of their players, including Rodri, a couple of the centre backs, had poor games. I don't think that's going to happen in the future. That's one thing I want to get out of the way. So if you're somebody who's in a Man City double defense or anything, don't worry. I don't think there's anything to panic about as yet. But when it comes to Newcastle, they like playing on the counter because they have Almiron, Wilson, and Saint Max. Saint Max was ridiculously good in that game. I almost think Wilson is then a fixture-proof asset because they know how to give a game to guys and they're decent on the counter. So I think if you're holding Wilson as a glue guy in your team, I don't mind it now.
There's one
Apparently
problem
has
with
a
Wilson.
hamstring issue.
Exactly. He's gone for a hamstring injury scan. So the problem with Wilson, again, is this midweek things that come along. He's not going to stay fit during the entire midweek if he starts every game. So Wilson is a bit dodgy in that sense. I thought, I like you mentioned, Saint Max, probably his best performance in the Premier League. The commentator said that he's having a sort of day, Kyle Walker is having the sort of day like Gary Neville did at West Brom. He retired the next day. So it was fantastic. He completely finished Walker on that side. Walker had no idea what to do. A lot of appreciation needs to go over there. But like you said, Newcastle, proper side. Newcastle, Palace, Brighton, I keep putting them in that category that these are tough fixtures.
Yeah. What do you think about Walker, though? Because that wasn't a good performance. He doesn't have many options, though, except for maybe shifting Ake to left back or Stones to right back. What do you think he does there? He sticks with him anyway? Because
I think it
Saint
depends
Max
on
is an
opposition.
anomaly.
It depends on opposition because you see now next weekend they're playing Palace or Zaha. So he'll probably keep him there for Zaha's side. But beyond that, like against Forest with Champions League, etc. coming around, it becomes a bit of a lottery because Pep can do anything. He can literally play any of the midfielders at right back, play off the centre backs at right back. He's extremely unpredictable and Pep's going to Pep. I just don't see a situation where Walker starts every game from now till the international break.
Yeah. And I think it's a fixture to target next week based on who plays in the weekend game and who plays in the Barcelona friendly as well. If you're able to predict minutes and go for an attacking punt for NFO at home, I think it's a fixture to target. So just from a very FPL point of view, because our teams are so strong, I want to get in a second, if I don't sell Haaland, an attacker in that game because that fixture is there for the taking. That's all.
Yep. We can revisit that on Monday when we have a clear idea of the minutes on the weekend and stuff like that.
That's a good point. I like that move.
Yeah. Again, we mentioned, I think it was in the defense pod, Zoff, where we said that somebody like a Trippier is a perma play because of his set pieces. So even if they concede goals, he's always capable of getting a goal or assist in a game like this. So just great asset that you can purple play as well. That thought is still sticking in my head.
Very much. And even at getting forward in open play against Man City, if he's doing that, that means he's going to do that against anyone. And he's taking all set pieces. I think Target didn't even play. I think they played Burn on the left side. So complete domination of set pieces is always a good thing because they have these big guys like your Botman, Burn, who are targets. So I have absolutely no issue with Trippier as a pick. I think he's a great option. Anything else to talk on this fixture before we move on?
Kevin De Bruyne.
Newcastle will be worth considering after game week 6. That's where the big run, favorable fixture swing begins for them. Crystal Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth, Fulham, Brentford from game week 6 onwards. So I'm sure plenty of FPL managers will be looking at Trippier and Wilson from that run, and if Wilson is fit as well.
Yeah. Now, De Bruyne, you were talking about Ella. What I noticed, he was brilliant again, but again, Hall potential wasn't there. Don't you think so?
No, I think again, this was an anomaly game, but I'm convinced now that he has that free role in that City team. And if Salah didn't have the fixtures that he does this week and the next week, if Salah had a slightly middling period in terms of fixtures, now I've seen enough to maybe go for De Bruyne if he's got a good run of fixtures. Like, I think I have reached that point. I'm not going to do it right now because Salah has insanely good fixtures. He's my captain hands down next week. But I've reached that point now, I think.
Yep. And like you said, X minutes, probably De Bruyne is one of the safer guys in that team. If I was going to go for a captain, and he's a very completely different beast at home. We discussed this multiple times last year. His PPG at home is something like 8 or something like at 9. So Forest at home, KDB captain, you really can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. If somebody's asking sell Salah, don't sell before these run of games. These are the kind of games in which he makes his money. So don't sell right now. Bournemouth at home is probably the best fixture he has. So don't do it. Gundogan is somebody I want to talk about. Again, making those late runs and making a fair few of them. And not just that, he's got decent assist potential as well. Because when Haaland is making the runs, Gundogan out of everybody in that team is looking like he's capable of finding him more than anybody else. So yeah, that's an option for me. And it's everybody needs to be very careful when they sell somebody like an Erling Haaland, because from what we saw, any game he starts, he's got brace potential. Literally any game he starts, he's got brace potential. He's that good.
Off the
So like,
bench
think
also.
very, very
Off the bench also,
Off
he has
the
brace
bench.
potential. That's what makes it tricky.
Yeah. And I don't think Kane is comparable as an FPL asset at all at the moment. So just make sure you're knowing what you're doing if you're thinking of selling in Haaland. Don't think of doing it this week, despite you reading they have a tough fixture and get tempted by the Forest fixture. Not a good week to do something like that, in my opinion.
Bakar, your thoughts on Gundogan?
Yes, I was going to come to that. In each of the first 3 games, he's actually been top for penalty area touches among City players in each one of them. So he's consistently making the runs. Even this week alone, he had 10 penalty area touches. And like we always see him do, he makes those runs in behind. He's the runner in the City team. And he's just performing very well. You were talking previously about who would you replace Mount with. I think Gundogan is a perfectly good replacement. He skipped my mind, but I think he's a very good replacement, especially with the fixtures coming up. He's in form, so he's going to play, I would assume, most of the matches. So I think he's a fantastic shout.
Yeah, and I think if he doesn't play the Barca friendly, yeah, get him in. Everybody needs to monitor the minutes, who's playing how many minutes in that Barca friendly, and then decide what to do.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he gives him big minutes because he's a big cog of the team right now and he knows the congestion that's coming. I'd be surprised if he gets big minutes there. A player I do want to talk about is Cancelo. At 7 million, he's just not looking the same player as last season. Bakar, could you share some numbers this year?
Numbers haven't been that impressive, to be very honest, other than the one assist that he got via that deflection against Bournemouth. He likes taking shots, but even those numbers regarding his shots aren't great. But it's obviously it's not that big a sample size we have right now, so it makes sense to wait. I mean, I don't see any panic or any urgent need to be worried about him because City's defense is so good that primarily you can rely on clean sheets in the first place. And the fact that with midweek, I know that Cancelo is one of the fittest players in the squad, so he would play most of the matches, while most of the others would be at more risk of rotation in that City team.
Yeah, I want to see the pattern over these next few weeks on Wildcard. I might consider going without him, but that's what this. See the patterns of the next few weeks. How much of the new guys, Sergio Gomez, he plays Ake at left back. So I don't think I want to sell Cancelo yet, but I want to use this next 3-4 weeks as a learning period to perhaps go without him on Wildcard. That's where I am on that. Anything else to add? Move on to the final game.
Yeah, sure.
All
the
you
floor
are
is
left.
yours, Pranil.
I'm just happy that Ten Hag was spot on in terms of what he talked about, because everybody knows the talent to a fair extent is there with these players. It's just about intent, and these players that were there on the pitch intended to fight, intended to run, intended to press. And that just makes a big difference. I mean, we saw it in the Leeds game as well, right? If you're willing to run, if you're willing to press, then you earn your rewards. And that's what happened in the first 25 minutes, where we were able to sneak a goal. It was scary watching after that. But what I loved about Ten Hag as a manager is that 45th minute sub, so proactive, changed the game. The reason we got the second goal was because Ten Hag made that decisive substitution proactively. Ole would have never done that in a million years, where he decided to get Martial on. Encouraging signs in terms of Varane and Lisandro Martinez as a centre-back partnership, making the gutsy goals to drop Maguire, Shaw and Ronaldo, who are a lot of half-measure players. And the players he got on weren't half-measured. They went all in. And that's what you really want to see as a fan, as a football fan. And the worrisome thing is you hope that this isn't just a performance because it's the biggest game. It's easy to get fired up when you've lost 2 games against and then you're playing against Liverpool at home when you have a protest happening. Then the testosterone is going to be there, but then it's the follow-up performance that is more important in terms of these players temperamentally drop their heads way too soon when something goes against them. And are you able to follow up a performance like that against the Southampton away next week? And then you start believing, but just stay cautious in terms of what you're doing there. In terms from an FPL point of view, United do have a couple of decent fixtures in terms of what were the fixtures? Southampton at home, Southampton and Leicester away. So for somebody like a Rashford, I think if you're a Rashford owner, hold him, because these are the kind of fixtures that would favor him. I think Martial is a decent punt. I have no doubt in my head Martial will start the next game. I think Rashford, Sancho, Martial is going to be a front three. Bruno is going to be playing the 10. Expecting Casemiro and Eriksen to start in midfield as well. So that's where I'm. Punt only on an attacker, but with caution, because consistency is what we need to see from these players before making conclusions. And let's face it, we got lucky. We faced a Liverpool team without a midfield. We faced a Liverpool team without Darwin Núñez or Diogo Jota. If they had a goal scorer in their team, things would have probably been different. But intent was their good start, but long way to go before we draw any conclusions.
So my takeaway from the game, I was very happy to see the manager adapt his philosophy. There was no playing out from the back. And a lot of times we see with these managers who come in with this all-attacking style, they don't adapt. Like, this is how I play. I won't change irrespective of opposition, but he clearly did it. He had decided to play on the counter. And I think United are a team that's suited to playing on that. Even under Solskjaer, you were essentially a counter-attacking side. But when you're going to have 60% possession, 65% possession, that's when really, can you guys dominate teams in that sense? So it's very much a wait and watch, definitely encouraging signs there. But Liverpool's midfield, like you said, non-existent. And we spoke about their defense not being at it. I don't think Van Dijk's as sharp as well this season.
Yeah.
The way he didn't
that
close.
That meme is my favorite. Van Dijk's aura. Did you see the meme? It's my favorite, absolute favorite. But yeah, he's looked 80% Van Dijk for a while now.
Yeah, so that is possibly the most worrying thing about the Liverpool defense. We already spoke. You hold for this fixture. Go ahead, Bakar.
Yeah, Zoff, it's not just Van Dijk. It's also the fact that I saw lack of effort. I mean, if you saw what Trent did and in the first goal, I mean, he refused to track back and he was so casual. It was frankly laughable to watch how casual he was. And I mean, Van Dijk wasn't really bothered to throw himself and block the shot either. So I mean, it was very, very, very strange watching what happened.
What did you think of Diaz? He had that good chance, very point blank shot that De Gea saved. What did you think of Diaz?
Yeah, that should have gone, and that was too good a chance to miss. To be very honest, I have no problems keeping him. I still think he will get a lot of minutes in the coming weeks. Liverpool simply don't have any other options to rotate him at this point, and he's one of their better players. So I think he'll do well in the weeks to come.
Yeah. I don't think
being
they can
United
afford.
fans off. He was the player I was most scared of, more so than Salah in that game.
Yes, Salah was actually quite, I would say, invisible, especially like he had a few chances, but not really threatening as such.
He's just a lot more creative this season compared to, and because of that, there's a slight downside in his goal scoring threat. That said, Klopp will realize that he's dropped many points in the first 3 games, and he will think, you know what, I have my best chance of a goal, my best goal scorer on staying wide, and managers see the same thing we do. So I won't be surprised if he's like, you know what, Salah, get a little central, get the goals for this team.
With Firmino, even more so he can afford to do that. And I don't think Liverpool will rotate over the next 3 games. They simply can't afford to. It again depends on who they get in the Champions League.
One thing is Carvalho, though. I think that's a factor that Klopp might be looking at closely, because he looked good when he came on. He's looked good in every cameo appearance that he's made. So they're struggling a little bit for creativity, and I think Klopp might play Carvalho sooner rather than later, and that might change fortunes as well for Liverpool.
Yeah.
That's it. A lot of people looking to sell Robbo. Bournemouth at home is a Robbo fixture if I ever saw one. So just
completely agree.
Calm down.
I'll just share some quick stats from Liverpool. They're still doing good in terms of the attacking numbers. They're 4th for XG non-penalty. Leeds at 3rd. So Rodrigo really has all you need in terms of you to buy him. Now let's look at the minutes per big chances conceded. Liverpool are second bottom. They've conceded 9 big chances. Only West Ham, Newcastle and Leicester have conceded. When you look at the quality of opposition they face, it's not like Newcastle stats are distorted by Man City, West Ham's also by the same thing. Despite that, Liverpool's 9 big chances in 3 games is a lot.
Yep. Agreed.
Right. Let's move on to
Just think Bournemouth offer nothing in attack, especially if there's no Solanke. So breathe. That's all. It's a good, it's the best game that they can have after the first 3 games that they have.
Right. Discuss our teams.
Sure. Want to discuss captaincy first?
I mean, let's just do a quick call on captaincy. Just because Salah has Bournemouth, that's why I don't think there's much really to talk about. In terms of alternatives, Arsenal, Fulham, City, Palace.
Yeah, still think Salah at Bournemouth.
Yeah,
like
it's a very easy call to make this week.
Twice about it at the moment.
Exactly. I don't think there's much of a discussion to be had. As an alternative, you could probably go Jesus or Haaland or even Kane at Forest, but Salah is the obvious thing.
Yeah, because Arsenal are playing better attacking football than Liverpool at the moment. But Bournemouth is the fixture where somebody like a Salah comes through. So, yeah.
Right. So we'll go with your team first. Ella, do you want me to read it out?
I can read it out. I've got Ramsdale as my keeper. Trent, Cancelo, James, and Perisic in defense. I've got Salah as my captain, Luis Diaz, Martinelli, and Bailey, and Haaland and Jesus. On the bench, I have Andreas and Neco Williams. I'm debating. I have 0.5 million in the bank, and I don't really have a clear place to go at the moment. And I do think Bailey will start, and I do think West Ham at home is a decent fixture for him. That said, I'm still debating because I think Andreas, because of Marco Silva, who's a front foot manager, is a decent pick in any game. So I might start Andreas instead of him. But I'm looking to save and then make
Bailey.
A double switch.
I do, just because the fixture being away and Arsenal being so tight, West Ham having all these issues, I'd go Bailey.
Yeah, with the 0.5 to go though, would you spend transfers anywhere? I think it's a better place to save the transfer this week and make a double or a triple switch next.
I think we haven't mentioned this in general. In general, it's a good idea if you can to save a transfer this weekend, because the midweek we have a lot of data in terms of the midweek minutes and all that stuff. You might get early lineups. So if you can save a transfer this week.
Yeah, it's about targeting fixtures. It's about going haul chasing. And I think there are fixtures that I like on the ticker more game week 5, 6, 7 than game week 4 at the moment. That's all.
Right. I'll just read out Bakar and Martin.
I'd easily save in your position, Brunel. Easily save. Just make 2 more pressing transfers next week. I just don't think there's enough upside to be doing a move to a 5.5 midfielder. 2 transfers next week will allow you to tackle the midweek chaos as well. So just save.
Yes, boys.
So this is our team, Bakar. I find it hilarious that you keep emailing me your team every week. I don't understand the point of that. Ramsdale in goal.
Do the honors and read it out. So.
Yes, Ramsdale in goal. Trent, Cancelo, Cucurella, James, Perisic backline. Diaz, Martinelli, Salah cap midfield. Haaland, Jesus up top, and usual stuff on the bench. Saving a transfer this week, Bakar?
100%.
That looks to be the way. Right, send in your question.
Unless you're not Zophar.
I have nothing to say. Right, guys, send in your questions.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Smooth part
Rodrigo
today. So
Perisic, somebody can make.
Last weekend, I don't think I had any edits to make this time. Last weekend was a nightmare. Last week wasn't.
No talking over and all of that as well. Good job by us. I think we did
it. Smooth.
Yeah. Rodrigo Perisic can make only one transfer. Project is asking that question.
It depends on who you're losing.
Yeah.
I'd actually say Rodrigo.
I'd still say Perisic.
I'd actually say Rodrigo. It depends on who you're losing, but probably Rodrigo.
I just think Perisic stinks of double-digit potential.
I was very close to getting Rodrigo. If he hadn't gotten the price rise at the same time as Da Silva on Sunday, I might have ended up with him.
Question from Ayush Virkar. Best 8 million mid for the future. Bakar, I'll come to you since you spoke about both these players. Diaz or Gundo?
Diaz.
X minutes.
I agree.
Expected minutes. Yeah.
Somebody's asking if they should do Walker plus Haaland to Cucurella plus Kane. Hard no. I don't think you should send. No. I think Haaland is a superior option to Harry Kane at the moment.
Agree.
Kaushik Sarkar, who's a member, thank you, Kaushik, is on Wildcard this week. With Salah as a steady cap option for the next few weeks, how wise is switching Haaland to KDB plus Gundo? Haaland had 4 big chance involvements, like Bakar will tell you. Just don't sell Haaland at the moment.
That's the thing with KDB. The haul potential, especially in the away games, is not that apparent to me.
Yeah. I also think it might depend on what kind of a tie the game against Palace is. If City are 2-0 up in the first 60 minutes and Haaland gets 60 minutes, then I think all 3 of us probably keep Haaland for NFO at home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it comes down to game state as well.
I think that's a very likely outcome, actually. Could happen.
Yeah. It's Palace, though. Palace have That's a good team now, so that's the only thing.
They beat City. last year.
Considering, yeah, if somebody had a switch like a Walker to a Perisic this week, I'd do it without thinking twice.
Yep.
Yeah. Randeep is asking any United assets. Yes, Marshall, Rashford, Sancho, all 3 decent assets.
All of
2
them.
fixtures worth
All
it.
of them. All of them.
I
Buy
mean,
them
pick
now.
one.
All of them. That's what Pranil wants to say.
Pick one if you have to. If I had enough to do Bailey to Rashford, I probably might have done it, I reckon.
I was surprised you didn't turn up here with a -8 and a full United jersey on, full shaved head. Like, come on, boss.
Yeah. So I'm surprised my throat is fine because there was a lot of screaming that happened last night. Nihal's asked a question. Super chat. Robbo to Neco, Neto to Rodrigo, and KDH to Zaha -4.
That's tasty. And we mentioned about not losing Robbo, but that is tasty. I'd probably give
I
that
won't do
another
it.
week.
His other option
Exactly,
is Robbo to
actually.
Perisic, Archer to Tony, and Neto to Lavia. I like that.
Robbo out.
Robertson to
Long-
Robertson to Perisic for hit is the dicey one. I don't think I'd do it.
Robbo just seems like a banker 6+ this week.
Yeah.
Nihal, what we're saying is hold Robbo this week, then make the big moves.
Because even
Exactly.
Newcastle at home could be dodgy because they have that counter-attack guys, but Bournemouth just seems like the most banker clean sheet in the league at the moment.
Another super chat from Nikhil Suri. Sell Haaland with Pep comments. Switch to Kane, KDB. Captaincy can be managed with Sal. Spread
Don't
Haaland.
sell Haaland.
We just covered.
All
we
three of us
covered
on
in
the
that.
same page. Don't sell Haaland.
We'll reevaluate this on Monday's spot. We'll talk about
Monday.
that more. But
Exactly.
for this weekend, do not.
That NFO fixture for Kane just looks like a trap to us. That's all. Do you feel like super chat from Christopher Icon? Do you feel like getting in before price rises and selling before price drops is essential at this stage? I was away and missed out. I think
question.
in fact this season more than anything, any other season, prices don't really matter that much because the game is very well priced in terms of you can afford so much with so little money anyway. So I don't think it's like too much in terms of mattering. That's where I am at the moment.
It depends. So like this week, the thing is there are midweek games. It's a bit dodgy. The midweek games of the Carabao Cup, you expect the fringe players to play. But then let's say you have a player you want and there's no midweek games. I don't think it's a bad idea moving early because the moves I made last week definitely had an element of value protection in them. I was about to lose about 0.3 and I gained about 0.2. So it was a 0.5 value swing. And that wasn't the sole factor, but it definitely played a part.
I agree. I am saying chase value. I just don't think it's essential. If there's a move you're 100% sure of making and there is no other information that massively affects your decision, go for it.
Okay. Couple more questions and wrap up. Already close to 1 hour 15.
I think we're good for now, Zoff. I think we've covered everything in depth anyway. And we'll see you guys on Monday. We don't know whether we're going to be doing the pod in the morning or in the evening, but we'll definitely pod on Monday. And until then, good luck this week. And Captain Mo Salah, any last words, boys?
I think, guys, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on the midweek streams. There's a lot of midweek games coming up. Stay on track.
I do want to know, let us know in your comments, when do you think these two teams will actually separate when you're talking about Zophar and Bakar's team? I'm quite interested. I did a poll in that we're getting closer and closer to game week time. So I want to see